What I'm doing is reading books that I'm interested in, one from every category. Oh no, what have I done? Am I about to give a YA fantasy 5 stars? Weird girl supremacy. I'm kind of obsessed. It's sucking the life out of me. Oh my God, history is so boring. It continues? I don't want to regret my decisions. Hello, my friends, it's Kayla. It's that time of year again where I read some of the Goodreads Choice Awards nominees. For the past 5 years, I've been doing this video at the end of the year where I read an entire category of the Goodreads Choice Awards. The first 2 years I did mystery thriller, the past 3 I did horror. This year I'm choosing joy. And what I'm doing is reading books that I'm interested in, one from every category. I don't want to read the winner from every category. I just want to read something that's hopefully already on my TBR from every category. There's like 15 to 20. This year they said there's 15, which makes me wonder what they've gotten rid of. I'm imagining they're combining some of the nonfiction categories and perhaps have gotten rid of debut novels, because it also says here that there's 300 books presented. And if there's 15 categories, that means there can't be any overlaps unless that's an oversight by the Goodreads post. In my normal reading life, I pick up most any genre. I will be reacting to them in just a second, all of the nominees, but my predictions going into it, I think I'm gonna have a hard time picking the children's and middle grade and maybe historical fiction and maybe the humor category. I'll struggle with finding what I want to read. And then I think I'll also equally struggle with the thriller section and the horror section and maybe even the fantasy section, picking just one thing out of all of the options. But I've got like 20 to 30 2023 releases on my TBR shelf, and I'd love to get through a chunk of these. And I also have 10 to 20 library books that I reserved, predicting some of the nominees and seeing if one of these might appeal to me. There's gonna be a lot of options to choose from, but hopefully this video ends up in a lot of high ratings from me. So let's get into it. So I'm here with my channel members and we're doing this live show today where we go through everything together, probably like 2 hours of just talking shit and speculating, and they're also going to help give me some ideas of what I should read if there's anything in a category I'm not sure about. I have a whole bunch of books beside me that I think might show up in different categories, or they're just on my TBR shelf and I know they're published this year, so if they pop up, maybe I'll read them. And let's begin. We've got fiction, historical fiction, mystery and thriller, romance. Everything's chill so far. Romantasy. What do you mean romantasy? Fantasy, science fiction, horror. Those are all normal. Young adult fantasy, young adult fiction, debut novel. Oh, debut novel still here. I thought that'd be gone. Nonfiction, memoir and autobiography, history and biography, and humor. What's missing? Graphic novels is missing. Middle grade and children's is missing. Poetry's missing. I think in past years there have been like cookbook categories, there's been travel categories. There used to be a paranormal romance category, but that was only like one time and it was a super long time ago. I can't believe graphic novels isn't on here. Like, I was worried about trying to find graphic novels and children's that I was interested in, but I didn't want them to get rid of it. I've never known a website to be so dedicated to making their website poorer every year. Fiction, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, I gave 4.5, 4 something stars. Burnham Wood, I didn't actually realize was a 2023 release. I do have that on my TBR. The Wishing Game, I'm actually intrigued by. Mame, that's the first one here that I have, and I could choose. Big Swiss by Jen Began, the second book on this list that I've read, and I gave it 3.75 stars. Blackouts by Justin Torres, I only recently heard about, and I put it on my radar. Evil Eye by Itaf Rum, I've heard of. That should have been on my TBR actually. Historical fiction. Oh, I've heard of like all of these. I just don't have any of them on my TBR. River Sing Me Home. I do have this. I picked it up at a library book sale. Next up, let's go mystery and thriller. Some of these might be Literally Dead book club picks for next year, which is why I'm not doing the thriller or horror categories, because I want there to be options for the book club. I Forgot the Villa came out this year by Rachel Hawkins. I gave it a 3 star. The Only One Left by Riley Sager, I gave a 4. Happiness Falls, I do own that one. I figured that's what I would be reading from this category, but I also think there might be more that I might be itching to read in a second. What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall is another one I have in that stack. I just got it from the library. I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca McKay. I do have that one. This is a TikTok list. I feel like we should have had Mary Kubica. We should have had Megan Miranda. I figured the CJ Tudor, The Drift would be on here. I think the most surprising thing to me is that Murder in the Family is not on here, because that's what I thought I might be reading for this category. What the heck is next? Romance. The 7-Year Slip I read, I gave 4-point-something stars. What is that? The Right Move by Liz Tomford. Listen, if these are all book talk things, I'm not really on book talk. I'm definitely not on romance book talk at this point. I'm pretty much on horror book talk. A Long Time Coming by Megan Quinn. I could not hate the cover anymore. Powerless by Elsie Silver. I feel like I've heard of that author. Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. I liked The Bodyguard, but I don't want to read this one. I am not about to read a hockey romance for this video. Oh my God, Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. Thank goodness there was something on here. I really feel like this is the exact same list as last year, just all of the covers are slightly different colors. Happy Place by Emily Henry. Oh, Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I was getting worried that wouldn't be on here, but that's another one I could consider. Wow, so many sequels. Am I clicking on romantasy? I have to pick something from this category. That's just sinking in for me. Oh my God, I'm about to read a romantasy. Oh no, what have I done? Oh my God, I've read one of these. I've already read The Foxglove King. I hated it. That does not bode well. Rule of the Aurora King. I am not his conquest. I am not his to claim. I am my own castle. Don't make me read that. What is that? Slaying the Vampire Conqueror? Throne of the Fallen. Come to me, Empress. Oh, what? No, I'm scared. Assistant to the Villain. I've seen that cover. I didn't know that was romantasy. A Game of Gods. A Dawn of Onyx. A Queen of Thieves and Chaos. A Soul of Ash and Blood. Can these all not have the same title? She lives by her intuition. He feeds on her pleasure. Oh my God. Fantasy. Okay. Venko by Sherry Demoline. We've got it. Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. We've got it. The Book That Wouldn't Burn. Clitta what? The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, I've already read. Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldry, I feel like I might read someday. Ooh, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, I do have, and it's our besties book club pick, and the live show's next weekend. The Adventures of Mina Al-Sarafi, I didn't realize was a new release. And I read it, and I gave it 4 stars. Let's go to science fiction. Yes, The Deep Sky. Oh my God, and Chain Gang All-Stars. Okay, so those were my 2 #1 predictions for this category and the ones that I want to read. And now I have to choose between them, which is very upsetting. Moving on to horror. Oh my God. A House of Good Bones, I've already read, and I gave 2 stars. Our Share of Night by Mariana Enrique, I've already read, and I gave 4.5 stars. Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones, I've already read, and I gave 4 stars. I haven't read Silver Nitrate, and I'm not interested in it by Silva Maria Garcia. Holly by Stephen King, I'm also not interested in. My Darling Girl by Jennifer McMahon, I figured would be on here. Not interested. First one that's an option for me is Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina, which I did recently purchase. Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I've read too many Rachel Harrisons that were flops, and I always read them in the Goodreads Choice Awards video. I'm not going to do it again. How to Sell a Haunted House, I've already read and gave 3 stars. Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang, I just grabbed from the library. Lone Women by Victor Laval, I also just purchased. Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas, I have already read and gave 4 to 4.5 stars. September House by Carissa Orlando, I read and gave 2 stars. Last Line, Monstrilio. I didn't know that would be on here. I gave it a 5. That's what I'd be voting for, my favorite horror of the year. Also, we have The Reformatory by Tana Reeve Dew, which I also gave 5 stars and is a favorite horror of the year. Dead 11 by Jimmy Giuliano, I gave a 4. And Rouge by Mona Awad, I gave a 3. I have read so much more than normal in the horror category. I don't really read YA much, so let's see what we've got in the fantasy and science fiction category. Okay, I did have House of Marion by J.L. on my TBR before I realized it was YA, and then I took it off. Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin. I have read some Rachel Griffin and liked her stuff. Delicious Monsters by LaSalle Sambury. I have not heard of most of these. It seems like this is a really diverse list of authors though. Let's go to fiction. Never Getting Back Together by Sophie Gonzalez. Oh, I guess there's gonna be romance on here. I didn't even think about that because YA doesn't have romance specific, so a lot of these probably will fall into romance or mystery. Okay, I've read Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert and gave it like 4.5 stars. I didn't love the last Angeline Boulley that I read. Suddenly a Murder, I didn't know that was YA. We Deserve Monuments. Oh, maybe I should read that one. Let's go to debut novel. Oh, this is actually good because then I can pick more than one thing because I already said I wanted to read River Sing Me Home and Banyan Moon, so I could pick both because I need to read something from each category. Ooh, I could pick Chain Gang All-Stars from this category and then still read The Deep Sky for sci-fi. Now we've got nonfiction. Let's run through it. Ooh, Butts, A Backstory by Heather Radke. Have never seen any of these. How Far the Light Reaches, A Life in 10 Sea Creatures. I want to read that. by Sabrina Imbler. Ooh, I love that cover. Memoir and autobiography. We're reaching the finish line here. I won't be doing a celebrity memoir. I'm gonna pick something else. How to Save Babylon by Sophia Sinclair. I've got it. Okay, that's my obvious pick just because I already have it. There's a couple things in here that I could choose between, so that's good. History and biography. I might struggle with this one because I just feel like I probably haven't heard of a single one of these. The Wager. Wait, I have heard of that. I put that on my list of alternate versions of myself TBR, like beautiful covers that I would read if I was actually interested. Valiant Women, When Crack Was King. Good Lord. Oh, I've seen this one. This is such a big book and it's so pretty in person. I told Rob to buy it for me for Christmas just because it was pretty. The Earth Transformed. Doesn't that sound interesting? Last category. Humor. I don't have a good funny bone, so How to Stay Married? Not Funny by Gina Friedman. Strong Female Characters by Fern Brady. Sure, I'll Join Your Cult by Maria Bamford. Tough Titties? Samantha Irby's the only author I've read from here, and I did not like her last book, unfortunately, just because, again, I don't have the humor for humor books. That's the entire Goodreads awards. Before the live show, these were some decisions that I felt confident in because they're already on my TBR. Leaving the live show, these are the ones that I have more or less slotted into the categories, and I still have a couple open spots and I need to make those decisions as we go. All right, we're kicking this whole thing off with Natural Beauty by Liling Huang. I have a hair appointment today to get rid of my grays, and I figured while I am changing my appearance today and giving into the beauty standards and my fear of aging, I should read something about the beauty industry. I think I might also go get my nails done today, just like gel polish, because they're getting a little scraggly. I'm currently getting ready, obviously. I'm keeping it light just because when I go get my hair done, all my makeup, you know, leaves my forehead. I haven't actually read the synopsis of this, but I started reading it, and there seems to be two different timelines. We're following the same girl in both of them who works at this like spa, and she gets a job right at the very beginning, and she doesn't really know like what she's in for, but she kind of just gets involved really fast and right away. She's expected to take all of these supplements and do all the treatments that like the clients will be doing. But then it flashes back in the next chapter, and it's her when she's younger and she's becoming like a piano prodigy, and her parents are sacrificing things for her to do everything that she wants, and she's going to this like piano conservatory where everyone there doesn't really like her, but one of the teachers seems invested in like helping her out. It kind of reminds me of the vibe of Chlorine by Jade Song, which should have been in the horror category this year maybe. And then at the end of that chapter where we were in the past, there was this like cliffhanger reveal that was very interesting, and then we had to go to a different timeline, and now I'm itching to get back and try to understand what happened, because there was like this somebody is dead implication. I want to find out what it means. It doesn't feel like horror at this point, but there are some tense moments. That's the first 30 pages. I'm gonna go do everything, and I'll come back to you with a little bit more. All right, I'm home. I got my hair done. She tinted my eyebrows. I feel like they're a little dark. I also got my nails done, but I mean, they look the exact same. And now that my beauty regimen is over, I can get back into this. So I read a little bit at my hair appointment, and I'm currently 18 chapters in, and I feel like we're at a turning point because her responsibilities at work are now shifting into something more. Naturally, there are a lot of differences between Natural Beauty and Rouge because they're not the same plot, but they are so similar in a character getting pulled into this cult-like spa. They are, I think, gonna have similar commentary in a lot of ways, but the main thing that feels different to me is the writing style itself, and being in the main character's mind in Rouge is that you know she is out of her mind with grief. She is being manipulated. She's in a dream-like state, and we recognize that because the writing reflects that. In Natural Beauty, you can recognize as the reader that she is being manipulated or she's not fully aware of what she's agreeing to. But writing-wise, it feels straightforward and clinical almost, and she's just stating all the things she's doing as if they are normal. And that's something that's really unsettling to me, is when characters don't acknowledge that something weird is going on. So she's just going to work and she's asked to do this or expected to do this, and she's just going along with it as if it's perfectly normal, but it feels so wrong. The writing is not confusing and fever dreamy the way that Rouge is. It's just like she's accepting everything. And now because of what's going on in the plot, she needs more money. It's easy for her to agree to doing more work than she was supposed to before. I'm pretty obsessed with the writing. I love it a lot. I'm concerned with where it's gonna go, but I'll check in with you when I'm done. The way I just casually kicked off this vlog with a 5-star, like this was so Kayla coded, weird girl supremacy, happy to be here. I feel so justified in picking something from every category that I'm just interested in. There's most definitely a conversation in here and commentary on Eurocentric beauty standards. It went in a direction in that way I wasn't necessarily expecting. It's a quiet kind of body horror, or it's rooted in mundanity. Like, it's natural things that your body experiences. It's not like gruesome things coming out or going into your body. It's like her eyelashes are growing at a rapid pace and she can hear her eyelashes growing. And like they're talking about massaging the jelly-like substance of your eyeball. The body changes were uncomfortable. There was sexual content that was uncomfortable. There was relationship stuff that was uncomfortable. It was like sad girl lit fic mixed with surrealist horror, but like slow, sad. Yeah, slow and sad. I will always like a story that uses youth and beauty the way that fairy tales do to highlight society's like fear of aging and therefore death. And then also paired with like consumeristic behavior and how people get so caught up in wanting to change their appearance, and companies will take advantage of you, they will manipulate you, they will create insecurities for them to then fix using like pseudoscience to convince you that you need something. My 5 stars are not reserved for perfect books. I don't think this is a perfect book, but this being a debut and doing what it did and making me feel the way that it did, just following her getting wrapped up in this world was perfect for me, and I can't wait to read more from her. And I just heard that this is becoming a series. I think it's a TV series, so I'll be checking it out. Yeah, we started with a 5. That's all there is. Easy peasy. Let's get another one. Moving into the fantasy category, there are 18 things for me to choose from, so I could really kind of go anywhere. There were things that were calling to me, but naturally, because this is my channel members besties book club of the month or of the season, I'm gonna start here. I just read the first 70 pages and we're following Emily Wilde as she is writing this encyclopedia for fairies, and you're reading her journal entries, her encyclopedia. There are footnotes all over the place of describing fairy lore to us as she's trying to track down this elusive group called, what were they called? The Lost Ones or the Hidden Ones? She hasn't taken off on the journey yet. She's just discussing this like conference she wants to go to. She's never been invited, even though she's this great scholar. But there's this guy, Bamblebee, who does get invited, and I guess they're gonna work together and eventually go on this kind of adventure. We just got a lot of info dump. She starts off saying that this encyclopedia is for people who already understand dryadology or whatever. And I think I feel a little overwhelmed by just all of the stuff going on, as if I'm supposed to understand it all, but I'm sure it will become more like comfortable for me to get into as I read. I think I might actually challenge myself to read this entirely outside today, because it's probably the last day before it snows here and the sun just feels amazing, even though it's only like 3 degrees. So I'll see you in a bit with an update. I know it probably looks like dust, but it's Kleenex because well, actually not Kleenex because Canada doesn't, did I just show you my used tissue? Canada doesn't sell Kleenex anymore, so it's like this shitty other brand, and every time I even like pull a tissue out, suddenly there's remnants everywhere. Anyway, I'm now 100 pages in and I feel more let in on it. I'm definitely gonna grab the audiobook though, because there are so many footnotes and they're great and they're giving an insight into fairy lore, but I feel like it's easy to skim over them. Like sometimes I find myself reading footnotes when I'm supposed to, when there's a little indicator, and sometimes I wait until I'm at the bottom of the page and then I read them. And I would obviously prefer to do it the first way, but sometimes I just miss it. And if I do it the second way, sometimes when I get to the bottom of a page, I'm too excited to continue in the story, and so I skip over the footnotes, but I think they're really fun and beneficial. So the audiobook, I'm sure, will insert them in the right place, and that'll be a good experience. But at this point, we're getting to know Emily, and she's reminding me a little bit of, oh my God, what was the main character in Half a Soul? Whatever her name was, because she's constantly like messing up conversations and not understanding what people are trying to say and not engaging with them in a way that they deem is appropriate. And there's kind of two types of cozy fantasy to me. Either it's cozy because all of the characters create this found family and it's warm and you get to know them all so well, or it's what this one is, I think, which is just the idea that you're not supposed to remember or care about any individual because there have been so many people introduced. I started writing down their names so I'd remember them because I didn't bring my Post-its. There's Finn and Lizzie and Henry and Poe. There are brownies, which are a type of fairy. There are changelings. There are mortal gifts that strengthen the fairies. There's just so much to learn, but I almost feel like this is cozy in the way that you're just along for the ride, and she's just constantly encountering various people and creatures, and you just accept it. Because I'm having to build a book club discussion out of it, want to remember everything, to discuss everything, but I also just want to read and enjoy and be in it, and hopefully I'll come to understand everything as it goes. But I'm a third of the way through now. I am liking it. We're about to be on Halloween, and we'll just see how it goes. I forgot my headphones, so I came to the park and continued reading, and I think I'll head home. Or maybe I can listen to the audiobook like as I go on a walk or something, but I'm halfway through now. I'm absolutely hooked. They're basically academic rivals, and she's really challenging Wendell Bamblebee on if his like research is even authentic. He had a very different upbringing from her. He's had like help and servants his entire life. There's been some incredible banter between the two. They're in this close proximity now. The way she described him is, he reminded me of some temperate tree or bush transplanted and forced to grow in some northerner's garden against its will. And then she ends up injuring him and having to take care of him. That scene was great. Really all it takes is this dynamic between the two, and I'm totally sold. There's not too many people out here, so listening to my audiobook out loud is not too crazy. And this was the perfect time to switch because Wendell just got a chapter. I won't spoil why, but like he wrote an entry into the journal. It was so good. I think I'm in about the last 100 pages now, and the action really just kicked off. Emily has gotten into quite the circumstance, and I'm kind of obsessed. This turned out to be absolutely for me. I can't even explain how much I just want to gush about this, and I'm so glad I get to do a live show for it now because I love Emily and Wendell. They are fantastic. It reminded me a little bit of my feelings reading Veronica Speedwell because, you know, these characters are involved and invested in similar fields of study, but they have very different personalities. Emily is type A, very focused, very committed to her job and her passion. And something that's really fun about it is, even though she obviously is getting into this romantic relationship, the academia of it all is still like so much the forefront, and what she cares about continually. She doesn't forget that in her entire life for this guy. And with Wendell as a love interest, it was just interesting seeing how his personality developed, the kind of character and tropes you might expect him to fall into, and how he does or does not. It was fun. The audiobook was great. I had a great time, and I'm so happy I read this and purchased like the hardcover because it is so stunning without any sleeve over top of it. Now I need to head into the library because I need to decide the next thing that I'm gonna read, and I have some holds and I have some things I'm just gonna browse about for. Okay, it's a couple days later. I just did my live show for Emily Watt's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I wanted to update you. My rating is a 5. My rating is absolutely a 5. I spent the morning tabbing, rereading, highlighting all of my favorite passages so I was prepared for the live show, and then I just did the live show, and the smile on my face talking about this book. I've already committed to reading the second one for the Besties Book Club, and we're gonna have a live show in March. I just wanna see what this trilogy has to offer, and I'm so excited about the slow burn of it all, and also learning about this fairy world. And it's one of my first kind of books getting into folk and fae. And the fact that I just like it so much is making me so, like, I just, rereading all of that made me feel like this could actually be in my like top 10 of the year. And now I'm just trying to figure out, like, should I go into the romantasy category looking for epic fairy romance? Like, who am I? Let's talk about nonfiction. There are 4 nonfiction categories this year. We've got history and biography, memoir and biography. Can I remember all of these? Oh, memoir and autobiography, sorry. Humor and just nonfiction. So I figured to make this all organized and like not burn out on certain topics or genres, I should slip the nonfiction ones like every 4th book or so. So I selected How Far the Light Reaches, A Life in 10 Sea Creatures by Sabrina Imbler. I'm past the halfway point now. I really do enjoy nonfiction, and there's a specific type of nonfiction that I've talked about so many times that I like, that is that mix between me learning something and also a memoir. So like learning about someone's life, but also learning about something sciencey. A couple like come to mind back here that I've talked about. This year I've read 23 nonfiction books. None of them were in any of the categories of the Goodreads Choice Awards. I think most of them were older. Some of them have been in the Goodreads Choice Awards in past years, but that means like 10% of my reading this year has been nonfiction, which makes me happy because I feel like it's a good balance for me. But none of the books in the nonfiction category were on my TBR. It's just this cover really called to me, and I figured it's a memoir, but it's also about sea creatures, so how fun. When I was like 10, I wanted to be a marine biologist. Maybe because I didn't fully know what being a marine biologist actually entailed. I just really liked animals. Then when I read more into the synopsis, is it still called a synopsis if it's nonfiction? I'm not sure. But I know that there is so much queer representation lacking in other categories, especially romance this year. So I thought it was nice that this author, it says, a queer mixed race writer working in a largely white male field, science and conservation journalist Sabrina Imbler has always been drawn to the mystery of life in the sea, and particularly creatures living in hostile or remote environments. They've made a lot of connections between various identities that they have and creatures in the sea. So in this one, they talked about how mixed race people are not actually hybrids in the sense that butterfly fish off Lizard Island is a hybrid. How the scientific jargon of hybrid came to be, how it's been used, how it's been misused. They've talked about things like creatures who have the ability to shed, you know, their skin or shells or whatever and start new and start fresh. There was a section about jellyfish and how they have the ability to essentially be immortal, and how it was connected in their mind to how queer and trans identifying people often are seen as having like a second adolescence and kind of restarting once they fully understand themselves. They're also sharing experience that they've had, like sexual encounters, the idea of what assault really means and what consent is, and read Know My Name by Chanel Miller and talked about that within it and the parallels that they feel, the connectedness that they feel with Chanel Miller. I really like the photos we get at the beginning of each section. This one was pretty impactful. My Mother and the Starving Octopus is what it's called. And it was all about how there's this one specific octopus, but also just this idea in the ocean of various creatures who spend their entire pregnancy or a bulk of their pregnancy completely starving. They don't consume anything because they're protecting their eggs so carefully and so deeply that they don't even eat, and some of them die. And they brought in all these conversations about their own mother and how they have taken in so many ideas about body image and disordered eating just from the way that they were brought up. One of the sections was all about their grandmother and coming to America for the first time, the struggles and the life that was created, and that tied into a creature in itself. There was that story of the whale pods. I don't know if you ever saw like a video of it or heard about it. I think it was a video where it was this pod of whales and one of the whale babies died, and all of the whales like held it up for so long while the grieving process was going on. So I like that it's talking about things that like I'm familiar with in culture, but also like so many sciencey, not so many, but like sciencey ideas that I don't really know anything about, like what the creatures at the very depths of the ocean even consume. Apparently it's like the earth breaking open and volcanic stuff coming out. Like they literally feed on that. I'm almost done with it. I'm quite enjoying it. I really appreciate the vulnerability that's being shared in here, and obviously the intelligence they have about marine life. So I'll be right back with my final thoughts. All right, the final thoughts are positive. I'm giving this a 4, which means so far in this video, like we're on such a great trajectory. Maybe everything is going to be incredible. I didn't necessarily learn a ton. It was more memoir than science, but everything was connected really well and made a lot of sense. And so in that, I think it was really well structured. I appreciated the writing of this. I would pick up more from this author. I absolutely love the cover. It's so pretty, and I might buy it if I see it on sale. So I'll talk to you next about some romance. I have a stack of 2023 romance that I have yet to read, and there's ones in here that I was excited that would maybe show up. 2 of them did. So that's exciting in itself, that there was something that I had heard of that I have on my TBR. But if I'm honest, I wanted to read these ones. And I can, and I will. But the 2 books I have to choose between are Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams and Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. These are each by an author that I have read a book from and gave a 4.5. One of my favorite books of last year, favorite romance, one of the only ones that got high ratings, was a 4.5. And then Sarah Adams, I bought this not realizing that I had DNF'd a book from Sarah Adams after just the first couple chapters. So it seems as though the right decision for this video would be to go with Yours Truly, because it's the one I'm most likely to like. And if we look at the romance category, like it's lacking in a lot of ways, obviously. However, 2 of the books, the only 2 books that I've read from it, were my closest to getting a 5-star romance this year. I gave these both a 4 point something. So maybe my feelings will align with the general population and this will be a banger. Liam has a hockey game today. I'm gonna be at the arena for hours before the game, after the game, during, you know, the periods. I don't read books outside of the house. I don't read books in front of other people very often. But to get through this list, that's what we gotta do. I had to make this fast.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're even in it. Because I need to use this battery for the game I'm about to film. You know you can go in. You want to take anything?
What?
Like the blanket or the tripod?
You told me just to go in.
No.
I figured you were gonna bring my seat for me too.
Oh wow. I'm really generous today.
You'll grab the tripod?
Okay. I've now read the first 100 pages. This is a fake dating book that takes place at a hospital. We have 2 doctors, and one of them is brand new to the hospital, and they get off on the wrong foot right off the bat for no real reason. And it's not like hate to love, because pretty quickly they acknowledge that the person is like wildly attractive. On her end, it's like she thinks that this guy is going to go after her job because she wants to be big boss of hospital stuff. And on his end, she's just kind of like being mean to him with all their nurses and not accepting him. But then they start writing letters back and forth because he comes across her in a closet having a kind of emotional breakdown. And that's pretty typical for him. He's got some anxiety issues, and she has a brother who has kidney issues and is waiting for a donor. And I think he's going to end up donating kidney. How much of this is in the synopsis? Oh yeah, have I ever read that? He's going to give a kidney to her brother. That seems like the obvious thing that's going to happen even if you didn't read what it's about. But they start writing these letters back and forth, and they're just getting to know each other in a kind of non-traditional way. I think it's nice. The fake dating stuff is going to come into it because they've both just gotten out of like terrible long-term relationships, and his brother is now dating his ex. And so to like prove that he's moved on, he like is pretending that he has a girlfriend to his family. So like everyone just gets along and they can all go to the wedding and be happy for these 2. And in reality, he doesn't have a girlfriend. So now he's going to ask Brianna for that. And I guess like the kidney situation makes it so they're both offering something to the other. Not that that's equal in any way. And they're very like communicative and kind already. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversations about like, I hope you don't think I'm just giving you this kidney because I'm dating you, for fake dating you. I hope you don't think I'm fake dating you for the kidney, blah, blah, blah. It's fine so far. I'm going to keep reading. All right. Terrible game. I got another 100 pages in though. I should be liking this. I'm liking it enough. I feel like it's gonna be a 3. It's not a fun fake dating trope. Like it feels like it wants to be. They're trying to have fun with it, but their emotions are just getting the best of them. And they are constantly, though they continually act as though they are like the best communicators, and they're so soft and gentle and understanding with each other. And then on the next page, they will make these broad like assumptions about what the other person is feeling. And I want to be so understanding because especially Brianna is coming from so much distrust from her relationship, and she's obviously carrying it into this one, though it's not even a relationship. Like 200 pages in, it's like they're falling in love. They've had no intimacy. They've had no real dates. It's just putting up the facade. That's another thing that fake dating doesn't always work for me, when they're lying to everyone, like their entire families so deeply. I want people to be in on it. I want it to be kind of fun. It was fun at the beginning, and now it's getting really sentimental and just emotional blow after emotional blow, and it's sucking the life out of me. I finished my book. I'm emotionally spent, and this is such a hard one. I know it has a lot of readers who love it. My critiques don't feel fair because it's just not my perfect type of romance. It's just so sad to read because every time she turns him down, it's for like a good reason in the way that she thinks she's coming across and what she thinks he wants. It makes sense the way that they're both acting, but like he's just so sad for so long, and I'm just crushed. Even though it ends nicely, though honestly, like some of the tropes towards the end are ones that I don't really love. This is a sweet, loving, let's fight so hard for this relationship to work independently, even though we don't know the other person even wants to be here. Like they're just working for it so hard. And I wanted to love that element, but it just got so exhausting. This started out a fun time and then devolved into sentimental, beautiful, romantic feelings, which is what people are looking for in a romance. Not me. I needed more fun, and now I'm wondering, like, if I had picked this, would I be giving this a 5-star right now? I don't want to regret my decisions, but I'm giving it a 3, and I would definitely recommend it because I know that my feelings about romance books, 1, don't make sense, and 2, are not popular. Making a decision for fiction felt so impossibly hard. I've read 2 of the ones from the list. I gave Big Swiss 3.75 and Yellowface a 4.5. And then I have like 6 others on there on my physical TBR or just my mental TBR. The Wishing Game sounds interesting to me. Family Meal sounds interesting to me. Blackouts sounds so interesting to me. But the 2 that I have on my physical TBR are Burnham Wood and Mame. And so I read the first chapter of both of these. And then also I got out from the library Evil Eye and Shark Heart: A Love Story and read the first chapter of these. They all feel like they're going to be relatively sentimental. I feel like I might have, I'm trying to be strategic about this. I have already started one. But my strategy is like, these have the potential to end up in booktuber favorites from people who I have things in common with because I've seen them be beloved this year. So as much as that makes me want to read them right now, it also gives me peace of mind that I might get to in January. And so I'm gonna go, or I am going, I'm halfway through Evil Eye. Sorry for the awful lighting this morning. Also my flowers are dead, but I'm about to go out of town, so I didn't feel like I should buy new flowers because then I won't get to appreciate them, because then once I get home they'll be dead again. So I've just left them in the vase, which is a choice. The first section of this is written as a journal entry, and it's written to somebody, and that was really appealing to me. And then it gets into the first chapter, and I really connect to this main character Yara as far as her like ambition and interest. We share similar artistic careers. She is currently teaching, but also does like graphic design work and does social media for the school that she works for, which is very cool. She's also a wife and a mother, and I immediately got really into her perspective. It kicked off with her teaching this class, and the students were so uninterested in what she was talking about because she's teaching at a school that doesn't focus on the arts, but a lot of the students have to take like one art course. And so they're very uninspired, they're not interested, and she feels so much passion for like the painting she wants to share. And she also wants to get paintings that are unfamiliar to especially like Western audiences in front of them, and wants to feel like she's making this impact. Her family and she is Palestinian, and she feels like there has been obviously so much horrific things that her family's gone through and so much sacrifice that they've made to get her to where she is, that she wants to feel like she is worth something and that she is doing something worthwhile, and that's not necessarily how she feels in her current career, and she aspires for more. She was talking about posting to her Instagram and immediately going and like looking at it as if someone else was looking at it, like through the eyes of a follower of hers, and how they would feel about the color theory, and she's making sure everything matches and is cohesive, and I just love that. And then there became this kind of travel opportunity for her, and this is what I assumed was going to be the moment where she really found herself and broke out of maybe what's been expected of her and the life that she chose for herself, but just the opportunity to go somewhere else, take this group of students, go on this travel thing. But I don't think that's actually what is going on. That is more of the catalyst, this opportunity that she's not actually going to take, for her to realize how unhappy she actually is in her life, and opening up to her husband, who she tells us she's perfectly happy with, and he's a great guy and she likes the situation she's in enough, but I think she's coming to the realization that things are not as good as she is convincing herself that they are. So the first quarter really worked for me, and then the last quarter has been kind of the same stuff. She's really in this inner turmoil, and I don't know where the story is gonna go from here, but I just sense that everything is kind of crumbling around her until she realizes that she needs more. My next read is done. I have now gotten 2 3 stars in a row, so nothing has absolutely flopped for me, which is good news. This one was equally exhausting to read, but that was the intent of the book, so I think I can appreciate that more. This was a really interesting experience. I don't read a lot of books like this. While I like slice of life, this one felt like a prologue to somebody's story. And I think that that's beautiful. Every book has a different, goal. And she didn't go on the trip. In fact, her not going on the trip and her not being able to get like permission from her husband, even though he constantly is like, you can do whatever you want. Of course you can do whatever you want. Every time that she actually tries to make a decision for just herself, she is deemed selfish. She really pushed for getting an education, getting a job, not relying on somebody to pay all of the bills and certain things that were expected of her, maybe in her culture. But then she does also fall into many stereotypes within her culture and loves those things. But then she goes to work and people will challenge her on that. Like, are you really a feminist if you leave work when your job is over for the day and go home to your children and all you care about is your children, and your husband doesn't really do much to support them, care for them, and she's constantly dealing with these terrible attitudes at work, and when she goes to stand up for herself, she gets reprimanded. It did end up getting super repetitive, which obviously is needed in this type of situation. When you are finally pushed into a corner, that's when you need to decide if you're going to make change or not. And we see her just being pushed down over and over again in this book, and it's messing with her so badly because she's dealing with like generational trauma, and then also she's just getting more and more volatile and depressed, and she feels like she has nothing to live for. The turning point comes at the last page when she's finally able and ready and has gained all the supports that she needs to get out of her current circumstances. She's ready to start fresh. And that's such a beautiful thing that you can imagine this character after the book ends really starting her story. And I imagine such a beautiful life for her. But in so many books like this, you do get to see that. And in this one, you don't. It wasn't as successful in keeping my interest, even though I obviously, like, it goes without saying, respect the story. I'm happy to have read it. I think I will go back and read A Woman Is No Man because I know a lot of people love that. But next, I think I will go to the mystery category because I just need something with a little more plot as I go into the weekend. I am leaving for a girls' weekend. I'm using my base bag for the first time. I'm so excited to pack this up. This feels like the perfect cottage sweater. But it's also big and just took up a third of my bag. Do I need a robe? That's a good question. And what book do I bring? that's what you're here to care about. I have read 2 books in the mystery thriller category. I didn't give either of them 5 stars, so maybe the next one will be that. There are 4 that I have on my physical TBR. I recently found I have some questions for you at a library book sale. Can't even remember what it's about. Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers I'm excited about, but there's a reason I'm not reading it, and you'll find out about that like next week or the week after. I also have Happiness Falls by Angie Kim and What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. I feel like it's one of these 2 that's going to end up being the highest rated, and I don't want to make the wrong decision. This one feels more thriller, this one feels more mystery, and I'll have the potential to read this in book tour favorites. So again, trying to be strategic. So I'm leaving in just a second. I'm trying to pack everything up. I'm building a charcuterie board for the girls tomorrow night. So I just did all my shopping for that. Now I need to pick up Liam from the arena and hit the road. Okay, everyone's in the hot tub. Let me give you a quick update on the book. I am really enjoying it, but I could see other people not so much, especially if you are thinking it's gonna be one of the more thrilling options in the category. It's definitely far slower. It's a mystery. There's also books. I just love getting to judge other people on their book tastes. So we've got 50 Shades of Grey, some coffee table books that definitely no one is reading. Oh, we have East of Eden, which I recently read, The Da Vinci Code, some classics. Ooh, this one could actually be useful. Some hikes in the area. And then I was also looking for something and I found more books in here. The Alchemist. I read this recently too. A Little Paris bookshop. Some mass market paperbacks that are just probably more shameful that have to be put in here and aren't allowed on the big shelf. There are 5 of us here. We're all here without our children. It's really decked out for the holidays. And then we're just on the beach. And I don't know if I can reasonably get through this whole thing while we're here because obviously you just want to sit around and chat and drink wine. But the setup is this man goes missing at the beginning of the book. He is like on a hike with their son. Their son has autism and Angelman syndrome. And so the child comes back to the family home and is kind of in a state of panic, but he's nonverbal, so they don't know what has happened to their father. There's 2 other kids in the family, and then there's the mother, the wife, and they're all just basically waiting to see if the police can find out where he is, if they can find any clues in the forest where they were. And even 120 pages in, like nothing has really happened. There's a lot of theories being spread around, but what I think is working for me so much in here is just the main character's perspective and tone. She's very analytical and statistic based, and I think that it's a really slow start, but I'm really enjoying it. She's finding various things in like his office, or maybe they found something in the woods that's related to him, and she's like trying to decipher various codes, and she's having memories and trying to figure out if different memories with her father mean more than they did to her in the moment. The little blurb at the top calls it a page turner and riveting, and I feel that way even though there is not much action so far, and I imagine the whole thing is going to be like more slow and mysterious. But at this point, they're just trying to figure out where he is, if he is alive, why he might have gone missing. The police are introducing all of these ideas, like maybe he left the family on purpose, maybe he abandoned the son in the woods, and everyone's like, no, he never would have done that. We know this man. And then we also keep getting all of these ominous like quotes, this foreshadowing or reflecting, I guess, because she is writing this after the fact, one of the daughters in the family, and she's saying things like, this would have meant more. If I knew that this meant this in the time, I would have paid more attention. Or we would come to realize that this line of questioning was more malicious than we realized in the moment. Like maybe somebody knew something was going on. Obviously, there's so much that we're gonna get to unpack in the story, and I'm into it. I'm home now. It was a wonderful, relaxing weekend. Had a great time. We watched so many Christmas movies. It was just like on a constant loop. And I have to say, I didn't love any of them, but this one was better than I expected. This one was way worse than I expected. And it was fun because we were all just sitting there like yelling at the TV when characters did things we didn't like. I filmed a whole bunch of clips for like the vlog and to build a TikTok after, and it kind of looks like I was alone the entire time based on this. But being there over 3 days, there was just plenty of opportunities for me to take a minute to read on my own. And that's what it was for. It was for just like relaxing, being away from all of our children for the weekend. And I wasn't about to put them all on TikTok. So I did finish my book the last day I was there, and I'm giving it 4 stars. It's a hard one to review because it really is the same note from beginning to end. It doesn't climax. There are a couple moments of tension for sure when you're in this family and one of the children in it is believed to know what happened to this man and is perceived as unable to communicate that. The pressure on that child, the pressure on the family to protect that child, and then all of like the law conversations that we get into, it had some themes similar to Miracle Creek. It was obviously extremely well researched and educational, and because of that, I think I would like to see Angie Kim write some YA. Perhaps because our protagonist is also 20, there's a very youthful quality to this, and it has a lot of stats and fact-based information that I feel like would be really beneficial and educational for teens. Speaking of YA, I've got to pull the trigger and read something from one of the 2 categories. Since for the YA fiction category, I'm thinking We Deserve Monuments as a heavy read, I want something lighter for the fantasy read. So I've read the first chapter of these 3 and House of Marion. I did not like the writing of I read the first 2 chapters. There was this girl who's constantly on the run. She has this secret magic. Then there's this school of like assassins in the secret magical order, and she needs to infiltrate it to accomplish something. There were dragons. It just doesn't interest me. Then with Delicious Monsters, I read the first couple chapters because there's 2 different perspectives. In one of them, we had this girl who was sitting in a diner and she was just talking about ghosts and the ghosts coming in and out of the diner. And then in the other perspective, it was this girl who had this internship and this really terrible mother who like wrote a book about being a terrible mother. And now she has this famous YouTube show and she's working for this company who like wants to control how they do the YouTube show. It was fine. Blood Debts, I opened the first couple pages and it overwhelmed me with the amount of information. And I just don't think after my weekend of peace that I'm ready to learn this much. And also these ones especially had really heavy themes. And because I imagine I'm gonna get that from this one later this week, I decided to pick Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin because I have a good track record with this author. I've read 2 books from her. I'm not sure that I have the second one still, but the first thing that I read from her, The Nature of Witches, was 5 stars for me. I think also because this one really focuses on water and nature, and something Rachel Griffin does is talk about the elements and climate change and like the effect of magic on the world in these worlds she creates, and it just appealed to me. And then it opened with the explanation of our main character, Tana, and their witchy situation. So they live in this isolated place and there are humans, or like the townsfolk know that there are witches, but they keep themselves separated. And then the witches are only allowed a certain amount of magic, and there's like this agreement that they will put all of their magic into the sea every month or whatever to like deplete themselves of it so they can't get too powerful. And Tana is in a situation where she has to marry one of the townsfolk in order to keep like the agreement between the groups of people. And this is the first time a witch will marry a normal human. So it's a big deal, and they're leading up to this event and she's like totally down for it. And so is the guy, because they just have this agreement and they care so much about their respective groups and families. So that was the introduction. I have not read the synopsis. I haven't even glanced at it. So I have no idea what's happening from here. Maybe it's a marriage of convenience where she is going to like eventually just fall for this guy and we get to see their romance. I don't know, but it is absolutely beautiful. I just realized it's probably pretty underneath too, and I'm gonna wanna buy it. And I was right. Me again. Oh my God. I'm halfway through this. I love it. Am I about to give a YA fantasy 5 stars? Nobody could have seen this coming. I mean, granted, I am only halfway, but I'm like, whatever this feeling is. Oh, let's read the synopsis to make sure I can say what I want to say. Yeah, okay, wow. So this is a marriage of convenience story. One of my favorite tropes. However, it's also a forbidden love story, and also it's a love triangle. Now, if this were an adult novel, I would have way more critiques. Is my camera so crooked right now? I would be telling you that things are moving way too fast. I would be saying the insta love is a little much. I would be saying, I don't think there's actually time to develop all of the stuff that's being introduced into this magical scenario, because now we also have dark magic high magic when she is more into low magic, and there's this whole coven that she didn't know existed with this boy in it named Wolf, and he is into like the high magic, and he basically saves her life, and she is now just madly in love with him but can't tell anybody, one, that this is happening, and two, that this dark coven even exists because they're a secret from the rest of the witches. It's going great. I'm so happy I'm reading it. So maybe I jumped the gun a little bit saying it could be a 5-star. Maybe it's because I watched so many mediocre rom-coms over the weekend that I needed something that felt sweet and romantic in a way that I needed, and this delivered. But I am gonna give it a 4. I feel good about my 4. And just like my thoughts on Angie Kim, what felt like 10 minutes ago, this is the fastest I've read a book for this challenge. I need Rachel Griffin to write a different age range. I need her to write adult romance. I need it so bad because I love everything that she's talking about. I love everything she includes, these magical systems that she sets up, and it's mostly the romance and how much I like the dynamic and how she writes dialogue. I need like 500 pages. I need there to be tension. I feel like this type of story is in the light fantasy category in my mind, and therefore doesn't introduce too many like life-threatening situations. Every scenario that comes up, you know that the character can get out of it relatively easy. That's what makes it cozy. I love books that talk about familial expectations versus finding your own passions and desire and wants and needs. And it would have been so great if it wasn't like 90% romance driving that passion and wants and needs. There needed to be like a more wide array of what she cared about, and that just would have done better servicing to this character who is a little bit plain, a little bit of your basic like sheltered, naive girl who just loves her family, is going to do whatever is asked of her for the first time, being introduced to another option. I love her writing. It's not too descriptive and flowery, but it's super atmospheric and it's the perfect amount of description. I really did like it. I don't know that I would read more Rachel Griffin, but that's what I said last time. This just happened obviously, but depending on what else she dabbles in. And maybe because this was kind of like romantasy, my adult romantasy should come from one of the authors that blurbed it. Carrie Maniscalco is at the top, Stephanie Garber, Adeline Grace, Emily Wen Zhao, Sarah Holland, Rebecca Ross, J.L. I know some of those authors are here. I am just about to go live with my channel members for some reading sprints, which we do a couple times a month, and I'm reading what they have selected for me in the humor category. I heard that this is from a comedian. It's like a comedian's memoir. Her name is Fern Brady. The book is Strong Female Character, and because she's a comedian, it was put into the humor category, even though it's much more of an exploration of growing up with autism and being diagnosed as an adult, the things that led to that, her own just like life experiences. A blurb on the back says, "You'll laugh, cry, be still, and if you're not autistic, by God, you'll learn. If you are autistic, you'll be seen, heard, held, rocked, and loved here." I have finished Strong Female Character. If I look tired, it's because I am. I've been awake since 5 a.m. for hockey. I'm sorry, I didn't update you at any point. I was just busy reading, and it's also my anniversary. But there's no rest for the wicked, so I did complete my book. I listened to the audiobook for a good portion of it because the author herself narrates it, which is great. Highly recommend the audiobook. I think I'm giving this a 4, which is what I often give memoirs. I'm really on a 4 streak right now, which is fine, nothing wrong with that, but I really need a 5. But basically, this is not a funny book. Everyone was correct. This should not be in the humor category. However, there are funny scenarios that she gets involved with. For example, she's telling us a story of when she went to meet her boyfriend's family and they had this kind of raunchy humor, and because of her own lack of social cues, she took the game like a little too far and they were all judging her and her joke. And because of the jokes involved and how that story is told, it feels like a humorous situation, but it's not. It's sad. It's an example of a time of many in here where she felt alone and felt like she didn't fully understand herself. And we really go through many years of her life where she is dealing with unfortunate circumstances, homelessness. She is put in like this mental health institution where they diagnose her with things that she doesn't actually have and put her on medication that exacerbates the symptoms that she actually has in regards to her neurodivergence. Symptoms probably not the right word, like attribute. There's a lot of talk about suicide. There's a lot of talk about sex work and her own relationship with that. I only tapped a couple things, but one of them was something that I hadn't really thought of before, which was frequency of autistic individuals ending up in sex work and how it is often seen as exploitation and how autistic folks might end up in this situation, this career, whether you agree with it or not, because of the fact that they are so vulnerable and so easily taken advantage of. And while that idea comes from a good place, a lot of those stories and conversations and documentaries made that she talks about in here are from non-autistic folks who are speaking for autistic folks and taking away their agency. And she goes on to talk in this section about how it's actually so appealing to her because the relationship between employee and client is so clear, and she doesn't get in trouble for so many things that she would in a typical job. Being a stripper for her involved not having to talk to a bunch of people and mask a lot of the time and communicate in a way that wasn't familiar to her. And also the lights in the room and the types of shifts offered were just something really appealing to her, and she wanted to make it so clear that that was her own choice. I thought it was really good. I think it delivered the exact intent she set out to do. And now I need to move on to sci-fi, and I have a sad update. And that's that I DNF'd The Deep Sky. I listened to this over the last couple days on audio and got 10% into the audiobook. Hate the narrator. And I don't know if that's coloring my perspective now, because I then went on to read physically with my eyes the next 20 pages, and I just couldn't get hooked into the story, even though we have a character named Lala and I really want to be into it. But I think just not enough really happened, and I don't know if I can read 400 pages of just surviving on this spaceship. I know there's a mystery involved and I want to be interested in that. I feel like the book kicks off with a bang, literally an explosion, and people are wondering who's responsible for it. The people in here have these important jobs to do, but they also, all of the women in here are responsible for regularly birthing children, because on this mission they're going to repopulate, and I just didn't care about anything that happened at the beginning, so it's hard to convince myself to continue. And so if I am on that hunt for a 5-star, I think Chain Gang All-Stars is that opportunity. Since I was going to read it for the debut category, I'll just read it for this one instead, pick something else for debut. And the reason I think this could go well is I read the first chapter in a video where I read the first chapter of every book on my TBR, and I gave it, I want to say a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It was intriguing. It kicked off with all of these characters having to fight to the death in order to have their sentences lessened to be free from this prison system that's created here. That was months ago now that I read it, so I'm going to start from the beginning. I think I still have the audiobook. So I do think I'm going to listen to that the next couple mornings as I go on my morning hike. I can't believe it still has not snowed, and it's the end of November, so I'm really taking advantage of it. I keep going to film clips of my process of reading this, and every time I do, the lighting is horrific. But I have to get this video up. It's just been so depressing outside. My overall thoughts on this: the production quality was so good for the audiobook. It wasn't an over-the-top one that brings in music and has layers of vocals and is dramatized. That's not my personal favorite. I know other people like that, but it had, I think, 4 different narrators, and it definitely lent itself well to this story because there were so many different perspectives I was not expecting. The overall story is about prisons, and it's a commentary on the current prison system, the prison industrial complex, systemic racism, all the things that you expect, but it's at a heightened version because it's dystopian, it's in the future, and these people who are imprisoned are given the opportunity to perhaps get freedom by fighting to the death, and they have opportunities to move up in the ranks, and there's all of these like regular competitions and deadly moments. And it was really interesting because it's not all existing like in this small prison system. Like a single location almost feels like they have so much freedom. They get to control the games in certain ways, and they get to control how like the audience is viewing them, because it's also televised. And so we're focused on two main women who are in a relationship, and they are like kind of in a competition against each other. They're taking various people out, and they have fans each respectively. And we follow the audience at home as well. The first time it flashed to that, I was so caught off guard and I was so impressed, because it almost feels like short stories or vignettes that we flash to like a character. We get to know them a little bit as they're sitting there with their partner watching the show, and they're arguing over who they think should win and who's the most likable. And then we go back into the prison, and there's like so much space that they move around, and they get transported to different places. So there's a lot of moving pieces. We follow like the producers of the show and how they're changing the rules of the game to make it more entertaining. We're following a group of protesters, and so we get to see lots of different perspectives of how people are recognizing that this is sensationalized, that we have become like everybody in this world has become, I mean, and current day, this is commentary about the world we live in actively, becoming desensitized to what other people are going through. And as like a hater of reality TV, with one small exception, I just loved getting to see all of these different perspectives of how these people are being perceived, and how their humanity is just completely stripped away because they're put in this environment. You follow a bunch of other people as they come into the situation, and they're being like taken care of by others, but also like perhaps sabotaged by others. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of death. It's violent, but it's broken up at just the right moment. Like we're in the middle of a climax, an action scene, and it will stop, and we'll get a flashback to something that we didn't fully understand before, like getting to know a character better, or getting to understand a scene, like a death, like something that happened that has been hinted at, but we never got the full idea of it. I think this was just so well crafted, and the audiobook like was the perfect companion to it. I'm giving it a 4.5. There were some things that were a little unsatisfying, and not the ending. The ending I feel like other people have feelings about that I don't share. I think also the critique that this is heavy-handed reminds me a lot of what people talk about with R.F. Kuang's work, so I've mentioned this before. But I just think with how media literacy is right now, and like especially on Book Talk, if you've seen people talking about the Hunger Games and like the realizations people are currently having about the world that was built, and how like they think that it's harmful, as if it's not a commentary on like the active situation in the United States. I think we need heavy-handed messaging. I think if this is the first time somebody picks up a book and learns what prison reform is, they need to be told exactly the history of imprisonment and slavery and forced work. There's like all of these conversations in here with various characters about why they would want the prison system to end. Like, doesn't it give people jobs? Like, doesn't it accomplish this? And it's like, for me, these conversations seem ludicrous and outrageous, but they're real things that are happening. They're real opinions that people hold. There was a lot about the history of America, and I thought it was all necessary. I don't think anything was wasted in here. I could have used like 50 more pages to have even a little bit more between Thurwar and Stack specifically and their relationship. I loved the pace of it. I loved the clear intent that the book had, and I would definitely recommend it. I have this author's short story collection, Friday Black. It's been in my TBR for years, and I'm officially reading it in, I think, January or February, but now I'm even more excited because this was excellent, truly excellent. I'm headed out of town yet again. We're going on a hockey tournament weekend. We're gonna be gone for like 4 days, and I need to decide what book to bring, and I feel like I didn't organize this very well because I want to read something kind of lighthearted, but I don't think I have any of those left. Like, I want to bring one thing that is intense and I can read in the hotel room and really get into every night, but then in between games and like out and about, I want to mix it up with something lighter. But I think I already read all the ones that I have. So I don't fully know what Shark Heart is. It does say it's a love story, but I know it's not a romance. And I don't know if it's sad or if it's happy, but I'm gonna bring all 3 of these and we'll see how many I can get through. Okay, Okay, we had our game, our first game of the tournament. It was, I think we won 7-3. So that's exciting. The boys are now at another game, and I came back to read, and I'm halfway through, and I just think it's okay. I checked Goodreads to see if like I should quit at this point because maybe everybody was just obsessed with it from the beginning. But I actually saw a couple of reviews saying that they didn't love it for the first half, and then it really like changed. So I am persevering. The audiobook was fine, but I am liking reading it physically. There have been a couple nice quotes. One of them was when I was on audio, so I can't pinpoint it now. But it said something like, Ren didn't know how to enjoy something, only how to perfect it. And I thought that was interesting. Now I know this says it's a love story, and it is a love story. And so it's unfair of me to say I want it to be a little bit weirder, a little maybe like wacky. Sorry if you can hear pool activities. It's just very sweet and sentimental as this man goes through this metamorphosis, turning into a shark, and loses kind of everything, his career, because it is this known thing in this universe where people kind of change appearance and turn into creatures. Not normal like expected, but normal as in the same way any other kind of medical anomaly. It's not anomaly because that would mean it was more rare. It is relatively rare, but it's a known thing. So with that, it feels like surrealism, fabulism, what have you. And it's this sad story of him kind of acknowledging this and the impact that it has on him and his partner, Ren. But then we also get a lot of flashbacks of Ren growing up, different experiences with her, different kind of relationships and interests that she has as their relationship kind of fractures. And I feel like at the halfway point, we are at kind of a turning point in the book because of what they are forced to do with him being a shark. I do see how people could love this and think it's absolutely beautiful. I'm just not connecting with it, I guess, in the way that I want. And I feel like I read a lot of books like this, but not as tender as this one. We had our second game of the tournament this morning, and I finished my book. The score was 6-5, so we lost, but only by a little bit. Now we're on our way to game number 3. I finished my book, like I said, and I'm rating it, I think, a 3. There was a lot that went into this book. It was all about like processing loss. There was some really uncomfortable parts about like a teenager being groomed and abused. There was a lot of pregnancy stuff. There was thoughts of suicide. It was a heavy book, but it was also, I don't know, I can't think of any better word than tender. So I guess tender is the word. I think everything that I thought about it yesterday, the second half actually didn't improve for me. It was pretty much the same. We're kind of following different characters, and I believe if it was written in first person, that I would have enjoyed it more and maybe felt more of that connection, less removed. But I am excited that this potentially could be like a gateway for people to get into surrealism, fabulism, and magical realism. So there's like a ton of other books that I would recommend if you read this and it was your first time reading something that is just like strange things being accepted in reality. So I would recommend like The Astonishing Color of After, Nothing to See Here, if you like shark stuff and you just realize that about yourself, Sharks in the Time of Saviors. Freshwater could be really good for you. Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. Follow Me to Ground, Mrs. Death, Mrs. Death. Not enough people have read that. Monstrilio also has a kind of similar vibe. Some of those do get into like odd, weird territory that I like, that I wish this had more. It's our final morning here. We just checked out of our hotel. We have one more game. It's against the team that we lost to last night, but only by 1 goal. So we'll see how that goes. I got 50 pages into this one today, River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer, which I found at a library book sale recently. It is an early copy. And hold on. Okay, someone just pulled up beside me. But it's about the end of slavery, which turned into, people who are enslaved being turned into something else, like apprentices. So essentially still enslaved. And we're following this one woman named Rachel, and she has lost a bunch of her children on this plantation. Like they have been taken from her, or they have been killed, or something has happened. And now when this moment happens in time, she leaves, she flees, and she is now on this mission to find those children. the ones that she can, obviously. So we just got a good intro of her and everything that happened, and now we're going to be on this journey, I guess. I don't know how long we're going to follow her, but that's what I'm reading. The tournament's over. It's snowing. It's going to be a rough 4-hour drive home, but we crushed the other team, and then they started a fight with us when the game ended. And if the boys decide to nap on the drive home, which they very well might, I'll listen to the audiobook, because I do have it out from the library for whatever it was called, whatever I'm reading. My final thoughts on River Sing Me Home, or my final rating, is going to be a 4. I think this was pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. I don't pick up like a lot of historical fiction, but I feel like every time I do, I like it or I appreciate it. I have something to gain from it. I remember reading Washington Black last year, the year before, and I was like, oh, I can like this kind of journey, like throughout many, many years and different storylines all going on throughout the story. And that's what it felt like in here, as she's finding different children of hers who are grown, and she's uncovering things about them, like who they are as adults, if they're who she expects them to be, if they want her in their life. And then you have other characters moving in the story who are supporting and helping Rachel. And I think she just discovers a lot throughout the pages as far as her own expectations and also her own idea of freedom, what freedom means and how people are creating it for themselves and the bravery that comes along with that. She's on this desperate journey, but it also feels very, I don't know, simple. Like things happen kind of easily at times. There's no real like twists and turns or anything too complex in here besides the narrative that already exists. There's nothing really unexpected about it. Not that there needs to be, obviously, but I think with a little more action or some reveals or something plot-wise, it could have gotten a 5 because the writing is great. I pulled quite a few quotes out of here that were impactful. I love the cover, and I think this was a good pick for me. And I think I only just am realizing how heavy all of the titles I seem to be reading, or most, are for this video. In my mind, it was a fun piece of content, but not many of the books are particularly fun, and the next couple are not either. I'm gonna move on to the YA, We Deserve Monuments. And the thing is, this definitely fits with my reading. Like, the things that I tend to pick up are of this nature. But I wasn't thinking about this video as a whole, and like the horror video and the thriller video I normally do, they are such a mix of like reactions and funny stuff and stupid stuff. But because I'm picking actually good titles and ones that have an impact and have important things to say, the goofiness is not really here. I just bought a new tripod and it's very stiff. But yesterday I ran through We Deserve Monuments, and I didn't update you at any point because my feelings of it were pretty much the same from the beginning to the end. YA is not something I read a ton, but it's always interesting to check out like what's popular. I have read one of the books from the category, the Talia Hibbert, that went really well for me. It's one of my favorite like romance books of the year. The rest of the stuff in there, nothing really called to me, but this one I've seen high ratings for. And of course I match it. Learning what like the sunflowers meant in the story and learn where the title came from. It was all really well-rounded and intentional. I feel like it was a little bit long. I'm giving it a 4. It's about a girl who gets uprooted from her life in DC and moved with her family to live with her terminally ill grandmother. So she's at the end of her life and she hasn't seen her in a very long time because there's been some like family drama, trauma issues involved that has people not speaking anymore. So when she goes to live with her, she gets to uncover like everything that really happened in the family before the last time that they saw each other. And then you also learn just about the grandmother's family, like history herself, the things that happened to her as she was growing up, the reasons that she is the way that she is, and seeing Avery uncover these things and decide that she wants to get to know her grandmother was a really beautiful arc to watch. Seeing her being the one to bring her family back together was really nice, even though she's dealing with so many of her own like external things too. She's 16 or 17. She just ended like relationships. She's having confusing friendship stuff, and so she starts this new life, and she immediately gets brought into this friendship group with a couple girls, and she gets involved with one of them kind of romantically, and that also causes tension within their trio. There are characters in here who are grappling with their own sexuality and coming out. The town that she's moved to is a small town. It's very religious, and so people are not as open as where she came from. So she shows up with, you know, a lip ring and her head shaved, and she's queer and public about it. And she thinks that kind of everybody should have the same opportunity, but people are struggling with that around her. I feel like this is a pretty typical story in YA. I would love to know if it's something you relate to, the idea of being uprooted in like high school. Like, how many times did you move in your schooling? Because I didn't a single time. There are a lot of things for me to relate to in here, and I wish that, I always say this, I wish books like this existed when I was a teenager, so like everybody could feel represented and I could see more queer people and people of color in my novels. And this is absolutely something that I would have picked up, but I feel like this is such like a typical story in YA, is moving and starting fresh in high school, and it's probably just to like kick off a new experience for a character, and that's what's driving the plot. But I also wonder if it's because this is a really typical experience for a lot of people, and so everyone's relating to it. I don't know that we had that many people leave or come to our school like brand new. I feel like maybe it was just like 2 or 3 every year of high school, but that could also just be me like not paying attention. Today, now that I'm done with this, I'm gonna start How to Say Babylon, which is the memoir that I've selected. I think there are a good amount of things that are interesting in this section. And at this point in the video, part of me wishes that I had selected something that has an audiobook so I could like get through it just throughout my day and not have to sit down and focus a lot of like all of my attention on reading. But the audiobook is not available in my country, like anywhere. So we'll see how much I get through today. Okay, here's what I'm reading. This was an easy pick because it's the only memoir of the list that I already owned. I picked it up from Book of the Month just a couple months ago because it intrigued me to learn about Rastafari. And Sophia Sinclair has done a fantastic job introducing that to us, what the religion means or the lifestyle and how it's already affected her and the people around her. And I guess we're gonna span her entire life. We started when she was a very young child, and a formative experience for her when she like almost drowned, and her mother kept that from her father and like the reasons why. Now normally in a memoir, I feel like I'm tabbing, when I learn about things, I'm tabbing interesting moments that I think are impactful in the overall, like, I want to call it a story. I want to call it a story because this reads like fiction because it's so beautifully written that I'm tabbing things that are just because of the language, just because of the sentence she has built. Speeding along the Haile Selassie through the Jamaican countryside, my lifeline curves back onto itself. There was more than one way to be lost, more than one way to be saved. While my mother had saved me from the waves and gave me breath, my father tried to save me only by suffocation, with ever-increasing strictures, with incense smoke, with fire. Both had wanted better for me, but only one of them would protect me in the end. Because of her father's beliefs and like many, you know, organized religions, very intense organized religions, she is being controlled with how she is allowed to present herself, how she's allowed to dress, when she's allowed to speak. And it's not so much that the men want the women to worship the same God, it's that they expect the women to worship their fathers and then their husbands. So there's this understood like vow of silence essentially, that you don't speak unless you're spoken to as a girl. Her parents were born the same year as mine, and she's about the same age as me. So there's also just some like interesting things to see the exact same year, the kind of world and the part of the world that my parents grew up in versus hers. And then she was meeting with these girls, and they had like access to different TV shows and stuff, and they were talking about how gutted they were that My So-Called Life got canceled and like how hot Jordan Catalano is, and it just really resonated with me. Great news, friends. We got another 5-star. This was so incredibly well written, and it's so funny because I feel like this happens to me quite a few times in memoirs where, especially the ones that are on a journey of their entire life from beginning to end, and they don't open with an idea of who the person is as an adult and that like it's flashing back. With a lot of memoirs, maybe you're already familiar with the person who wrote it, and so they establish like who they are and how their life is currently, and then they flash back to so many moments in their life. This one and many others that I've read and loved equally start at the beginning of their life, and you're slowly following them becoming an adult. And I have no idea how they like got out of their circumstances. I have no idea how they became the person that they are until I get to that point. And it always happens to me where I'm wondering, like, how did this book become, like, what happened in their life that they felt they were ready to tell this story? I can't wait to see the experiences they have as an adult. And in most of the memoirs that I read that I feel this way, it's so obvious that the reason that they're writing it is because they're a writer, is because they fell in love with writing. They fell in love with poetry. They got an opportunity. She got her poetry recognized, and now she's writing a book because that's where her passion lies. And that's like the best kind of memoir because they're so skilled, and that's why they're writing a memoir. Obviously, yes, they have had so much happen in their life and there is a story to be told, but also they just have the capability of writing a really compelling tale. So the fact that I didn't think about that beforehand, like, this is an author, that is who she is as an adult, it's always somehow a surprise. And I just loved following her journey. I think it was told with the perfect amount of equal respect and critique of everything that she's been through. I think there are other people in her life that could write their own memoirs. She manages so much tension in here because there also isn't just like one moment where things change. She's constantly struggling and then getting through it, struggling, finding peace, struggling, finding support. I also learned so much about Jamaica. There was great history lessons. There was even like current day explanations of like, there is all of the land here is not owned anymore by Black Jamaicans in this certain space that she's talking about, but her family had land and has land for the longest of like anybody. They managed to hold on to it, and just like how much the beach means to her. Highly recommend if you're into memoirs, and even if you're not, just to appreciate the language. Romantasy is definitely the category that I find the most challenging. I read the synopsis of all of these books in the live show. None of them were calling to me, so I thought I would go in store and just grab the ones that I saw and read the first chapter, see if something spoke to me there. I kind of had a reason not to pick up every single one of these books. There was something that somebody put in, like the content warnings or my experience with an author or just the vibe of the synopsis that didn't feel perfect for me. But of course, the longest one that I grabbed is the one, and also like kind of the ugliest cover in my opinion. I have read 2 romantasy books this year, not like kind of in my own control in both situations. They were both for video projects. One was Pestilence by Lauren Thalassa, who did have another book on this list that I could have picked, but I felt like since I gave it 2 stars, I shouldn't go into that situation. And then I have read somehow The Foxglove King, which I didn't realize came out this year. So that's gonna have to get my vote if this one isn't a win. It is Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. The beginning opened with like a regular kind of prologue, but then it went into the game begins, and the beginning opened up with rules of conduct, and it was just kind of fun. It also has to do with the 7 deadly sins, which is interesting. The Prince of Envy has never claimed to be a saint, but when a cryptic note arrives signaling the beginning of a deadly game, he knows it will take more than a hint of sin to win and save his falling demon court. That's what I decided on. It's 550 pages, so maybe I'll update you every 50. Okay, we've met both of the characters at this point. We have the demon king Envy, and we have Camilla, who's just a regular girl. She is doing some art forgery, and he wants to get a painting done by her. And it has something to do with the game. Like, he only gets 3 chances to like convince her. I don't know why. I don't know the rules. There's been a lot of description so far, like how they look and how attractive they both are. And then she got into a carriage and she started fantasizing about him. And I imagine this is going to get very explicit very quickly. So wish me luck. Wish my cheeks luck for not too much blushing to come. I think I like it. I am 100 pages into my book now, and I'm positively scandalized. I feel like I could read the entirety of it today. And now, what am I? 250 pages in. I was worried with the speed at which their relationship was going, that this was going to get a little too like explicit, a little too fast, and the whole book was just gonna be that. It's not, and it's not for a reason. There's like this, I don't know, agreement that Envy, our character, has made with himself in regards to sexual conquests. So though things have gone down, don't get me wrong, there is still like a slow burn to appreciate. There was a lot to learn in that last section though. Like it took a whole 50-page break from anything really between the two super romantically, and it focused on some action. So there was stuff regarding his brothers, and she found certain things out. We learned a bunch of stuff about vampire things that exist here and like this binding magic, and they both kind of have a secret from each other. There are things definitely being hidden from us as the reader too, which is fun. The word sin is definitely being overused. It's on like every single page multiple times, because these 7 deadly sin brothers, their sin affects them. So like their life is kind of messed up or positive based on their individual sins. So like the reason that Envy doesn't ever want to be with anybody is because he knows he can never truly be happy, because he will always be envious of others. So he will only allow himself like one night per person. Anyway, there's also this kind of like fake dating. I don't know how you would describe it in this context, but they are pretending to be together to benefit themselves. And that's my favorite trope. I'm finishing this today. Like this was supposed to be a multi-day read. This is happening today. I am not going to sleep without finishing this. Is never ending. I finished Throne of the Fallen. I could not put it down. I was definitely eating it up. I'm giving it a 4. I do think it's well written, but I think we could have had more clarity on more things earlier. Goals and motivations could have been more clear from the beginning. I get that romance can mean a lot of different things, but this doesn't feel like romance to me, or especially like the first 3/4 of it. It just feels like lust. It feels very lusty. It's not like these characters go on a journey where they grow and change independently and then come back together. Something that could have had more development from how they went to like enemies to lovers truly, or how they went from lusting over each other to actually like caring for one another. That didn't work totally. Definitely with him being like a demon, I don't think you can expect everything to be absolutely perfect as far as their relationship with each other and how like safe they are being together. With that said, I expected it to be way worse as far as the other romantasy stuff that I've read and the relationship dynamics that are like so aggravating as the reader. There was a little questionable stuff, but really not very much, and nothing really like made me cringe. And I don't know if that's me changing as a person or the book. And Camilla is just like constantly in danger and in need of being saved, but it's not like too damsel in distress-y. There were really interesting things to learn about. There were reveals that I saw coming, some that I didn't. Don't know that this is now a kickoff to my journey of romantasy, because last year I was reading romance and thought that this would be my year of romance, and it very much wasn't. And so I'm not going to take this energy into 2024. However, I will not hesitate to put the occasional romantasy book on my list. Let me know if you know any of ones that are coming up. Maybe I should just stick to this author though, when I really think about it, because I don't think I trust anybody's recommendations. Anyway, I've been reading this since 8 a.m. It's midnight. I'll see you tomorrow for another one. It's time for my final book. I was gonna come on here and tell you my plans for the day, which was to drive to Liam's hockey game. It's an hour away, and listen to the audiobook on the way because I was gonna be alone in the vehicle. Rob's on call, so he already is at the arena with Liam with his work truck in case he has to like leave and work, and I was gonna show up in a little bit. But it's snowing kind of heavily. A lot has accumulated in the last hour, and I can only imagine what the drive is going to be by myself there and back. So I think this is his second game, only his second game of the season I'm missing. But that does mean I can probably get through all of this today because now I'm just home alone for 4 hours. So this is what I will be doing. Reading The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny, and Murder. This is so popular. I went to reserve it from the library and there was the most holds I feel like I've ever seen of any book ever. This is the same author as Killers of the Flower Moon and The Lost City of Z, which I used to own, but I never read it. I guess his whole thing is writing nonfiction as if it's fiction. So it feels like a narrative that you're following and really, I don't know, stunning language. I don't know what to expect from this, but I'm obsessed with the cover. So I hope I love it. I don't know the plot. On January 28th, 1742, a ramshackle vessel of patched together wooden cloth washed up on the shore of Brazil. Inside were 30 emaciated men barely alive, and they had an extraordinary tale to tell. They were survivors of His Majesty's ship, The Wager, a British vessel that had left England in 1740 on a secret mission during an imperial war with Spain. I'm not going to read on any further. There's maps, and let's just see how it goes. Oh my god, history is so boring. No wonder I dropped out of History 11 after the first day. Just kidding. Well, I'm not kidding. But it could be worse. I could be less interested. That's a lie. I just lied to you. This book is gonna break me. This is the one. After all of these books, I'm on the last one. It's not even that long. This is what's gonna stop me from completing this challenge. Oh my god, I don't want to continue. I just like don't care. I don't care about these 30 men in their little boat. I know they experience such hardship and I feel for them. I'm glad that David Gran cares because I can't. Good for him for wanting to dig into this stuff and tell these stories. The writing is the only thing that's keeping me reading. It is like a narrative, it feels like fiction, but it's more so just like the way that he is structuring things I can appreciate. So there are moments where you're actually reading like a journal entry. Well, not even a full journal entry. It's mostly him going, on January 3rd, Oakley said this sentence. And then the next paragraph will start like, on January, what did I just say? 3rd. The men all woke up and they saw light coming through here, and like that's clearly not an entry, and just the way that he interpreted things, or maybe he's making stuff up to create the story. But then also 3rd paragraph, like on January 4th, you could tell Oakley was really taking this decision he had to make seriously. So that's something that he could be gleaning from the journals, but he's not referencing the journals specifically and quoting it. So I think that's skillfully done, the organization of like at what point to structure the sentence which way. At this point, the men have been surviving on an island for like a month, and now they're putting together a boat and they're going to survive. And then I guess what happens is there's another smaller crew who got left behind, and they made their own ship and also survived. And when the first group arrives, they're met with all of these people where they land who are like praising them and being so impressed by I don't know how they got there or who they are, whatever. But then the other ship washes ashore and they're like, no, those people are bad and you shouldn't have given them any accolades. Here's what really went down. It's kind of like, it's not like Lord of the Flies, but that's my only reference point. So I'm gonna say it's a nonfiction Lord of the Flies. I come to you again with a midnight update. I did finish my book. I'm proud of myself. And I don't know if it's because of the time of night that it is, or the time in the month that it is, reading an aggressive amount of books. But I'm just like no thoughts head empty about this. There is no good review here at the end. I don't know if you were waiting for that. I feel like there were some things that were surprising, like who was left behind and what people were thinking and how everyone reacted to certain situations. It was an interesting read. It did nothing for me at any point. I do regret purchasing this one a little bit, but it was my only option. I couldn't get it anywhere else. Babe, I finished my video.
Good job.
Do you have any idea what I'm working on?
Yeah, you're reading one from every thing of the awards.
Oh, you only know that because you see my TikToks.
So? I still know.
I guess if you've gotten to this point in the video, this isn't useful, but my tip to anybody who thinks this video is way too freaking long, you could just go watch all my TikToks, and each one of these is reviewed in under 2 minutes. Here's everything that I read. This should be 15 books. Oh my God. It feels like a lot. Like they're all full length. Oh, I'm so strong. Freaking books. Let's see if anything I read won. Most of the things I read didn't even make it to the top 10. So, okay, Yellowface One Fiction, which I didn't read for this, but I would have voted for. A book I have read, one romance, but not for this video. Fantasy, romantasy, horror. Oh, that book won 2 categories. None of these are surprising. Oh, The Wager won history and biography. So though I did I even rate that? I don't know, like a 3? That is the only book that I read in this video that actually won. The question is, was this a better video idea than the other 5 years? I think the answer is yes, because I got a good amount of 5 stars. I got a good amount of 4 stars. I got a couple 5 stars and a couple 3 stars. And in every other year, I have had a complete range. I've hated things that I've read and I've loved things that I read. And very rarely did I find absolute new favorites doing this challenge for myself. With that said, the 4 that I rated the highest were already on my TBR. So I probably would have read them anyway, but I found some incredible books. I did give 4 books 4 stars that I probably never would have picked up outside of this challenge. So that's the big win, I think. Honestly, this feels like a big win. And now people's videos have been coming out reading other categories. Maybe I'll link a playlist down below because I've seen so many people do so many categories. And this one has been a lot of people's not favorites in the romantasy category, so maybe I'm wrong. Another couple 4 stars already on my TBR. And then these 4 were the flops of the video, but even with that said, I didn't go below a 3. And I didn't waste too much money because 2 of them came from the library. I consider this a success. I have no idea what I'm gonna do next year. I need to have a new fun idea, but I've got 11 months to think about it. So I'll see you then, but hopefully I'll see you like 100 times before then too. Okay, bye, love you. As a friend.